Alright, welcome back to another video. It's, what are we, 10 days into the new year? What's today? The 10th. It's the 10th. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh no. Alright, so I go back to school in a week. Oh no. So it's 10 days into the new year, and originally I was going to make this video a couple, or at least New Year's Eve, going on to New Year's Day maybe. But the problem at hand was one of the movies that I was going to include on this list. I watched the last day of New Year's, and I just kind of, or the last day of 2024, and so I just didn't get around to recording this video until now, for a variety of reasons. So yeah, I'm gonna try and keep this short because it is 10 p.m. at night, and I would like to sleep, but I do also want to get this out of the way because I have been thinking about this for a little bit. So yeah, this is my top 10. As it says best movies, but it is a top 10 movies of 2024 list. This is it. Honorable mentions. Now, full warning, I didn't get to see as many movies as I did last year. Last year, I watched a total of like 60 new for 2024 movies, not including the stuff that I was rewatching or stuff that I watched for the first time for the past. I watched 60 new for 2024 movies. This year, I only watched 27. So I wasn't able to get to like all corners, like indie movies, I wasn't able to watch a whole bunch of movies that haven't been heard of as much as some of these as I did last year. Just an unfortunate part of going to college and getting getting busier. So yeah, full forewarning because you're about to see a lot of stuff you've probably heard of before. All right, um, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, The Fall Guy, Twisters, Hitman, Monkey Man, and Furiosa. All the movies are honorable mentions. At one, uh, three of these movies were in my top 10 at one point, but got moved out for various reasons. Fall Guy and Twisters were just a lot of fun. I had just all really fun movies. Hitman was another one of those really fun movies, but I think I love the chemistry between Glenn Powell and Drea. I do not know how to say her last name. Sorry. I love their chemistry a lot. Same thing with these two, but these two specifically. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I got into the Planet of the Apes franchise this year, just in general, and so I got to watch Kingdom. And I think it was a really good continuation from War. War was the third one, yes, for War for the Planet of the Apes. Um, Now, all things considered, I do think it's the worst, if not second worst, of the movies. But that's not saying much because I think it's still really really good. Monkey Man, a movie that I wouldn't say I was disappointed by, but I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of people did. But I still think it's really good. I still had a lot of fun with it. But all things considered, it wasn't enough to make my top 10. And Furiosa at some point was in my top three movies of the year. But the more I think about Furiosa, the more I don't know, the less the worse it gets for me, and the more it kind of pisses me off in certain places. I definitely need to rewatch it because I once again another thing I've only watched Fury Road for the first time this year. Blasphemous, I know I should have watched that so long ago, but I digress. I understand, but yeah, Furiosa was for me. I, I I don't know. There's just something about the pacing or whatnot, or just something about the movie that makes me like it less and less every time I think about it. So yeah. All right, pass the honorable mentions. Number 10, Love Lies Bleeding. I did not really know what I was getting myself into going into this movie. There's a certain point in time where you would go to the movie theaters, I think like late last year, early this year, and there would be like constant upon constant trailers for Love Lies Bleeding. And I only got to watch it for the first time in October. It was September, October. I got to watch it for the first time, and I think half of this movie. I think this movie is like a tale of two halves. Um, Half this movie I still think is really good. The other half is much better, but at the same time extremely weird. And I think that's what I like about it because it plays out one way. In the second half, it gets very, very weird. It gets really weird towards the second half of the movie, going into the end, and I really like it. I really like that that it kind of does that weird thing. It kind of subverts expectations in a way, because I definitely was not expecting the movie to end like it did. Right, Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien, phenomenal, phenomenal. I absolutely love them both. Their chemistry, the development that they each of the characters go through. Kristen Stewart confronting her past, and Katie O'Brien's character having to deal with revenge and um, dealing with a whole bunch of circumstances because of this kid. It's great. I love this movie. I think you should go watch it. It's very weird, and it's very gay, but that's great. It was genuinely a great movie. All right, number 9, juror number 2. Juror number 2 was an interesting one, because I watched this maybe last week of December, last week of the year of the 2024. Um, I expected this to just be kind of like a courthouse drama, which I love. I love those. Uh, I love that stuff. That's great. Um, but honestly, it kind of turned into like a psychological. It ended up being like a psychological thriller regarding a man saw uh who was a juror in a trial that was unfolding, because it may or may not have been him, right? May or may not have been him. Or he or because of his actions that caused that. It was a very interesting twist on the courtroom drama. It felt like, you know what, and I'll say this, I say interesting twist as if I wasn't going to compare this. It felt like last year when Anatomy of a Fall came out, right? It absolutely felt like Anatomy of a Fall, just with a different, kind of twist. It's the tiniest little twist, but it does feel like an Anatomy of a Fall type kind of movie. And I loved Anatomy of a Fall, so like this was always going to appeal to me. I don't know. It's a very weird comparison to make, since I haven't seen Anatomy of a Fall in about 10 months, 11 months actually. Um, but overall, I think this movie is great. Put Nicholas Hoult in more movies. Put Nicholas Hoult in everything. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite actors ever. Number 8, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. There's not really much to explain on this one. I like Sonic. I'm a Sonic fan. I'm not a die-hard Sonic fan, like the people on Twitter that are, you know, constantly attacking other movies. Mufasa attacking other movies just because it might be doing better than their movie or whatnot. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. I think it's, say what you want about Disney. I think it's mad disrespectful to go at the people who are actively, or at least attack a movie with a whole bunch of people that did have to work hard under terrible conditions to get it done. But I digress. Um, Stay away from me, Sonic fans, on that one. But yeah, no. In regards to the games and whatnot, I really like Sonic. I think Sonic is great. Um, and then, so watching this movie for the first time was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I went and saw it with two friends who I haven't seen in a long time because college stuff. And we just had a ball. Like, especially that second half of the movie, like toward when you get to the climax of the movie, it's like, man, this is so cool. A shadow throughout the entire movie is so cool. Keanu Reeves' shadow is great. I didn't really think I'd like it at first because I think his shadow voice in those trailers is very weird. It's very, very weird-ish. I'm not sure. But then as the movie goes on, it kind of grows on you. You're like, oh my god, this is great. Him as Shadow is amazing. And kind of this character arc that Sonic goes through, um, regarding his friends and Shadow, and also kind of with Love Lies Bleeding, kind of a revenge thing. It's weird. Um, and then of course the last thing about this movie, the movie is just cool. The movie is just really really cool. It's just a cool movie overall, and like that's the best. That's the best thing I can say about it. It's just really really cool. And I can't wait to rewatch it at some point. Also, Jim Carrey, double Eggman, phenomenal. Number 7, Rebel Ridge. I'm fully convinced this was Aaron Pierre's audition for Jon Stewart. Um, anyways, this movie is great. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's something that I think you should kind of experience for yourself. This movie is great. I think the plot is really good. I think the acting is really good. I think the concept is pretty good. Um, it was honestly one of the biggest surprises of the year for me because I saw the trailer and I thought it looked interesting. Like like John Wick as a black dude, John Wick type character that looks like me, right? But like it didn't end up being that, and honestly, I'm not mad at it. It ended up being like a very it's more of a thriller than anything. It's what his action was. It ended up being more of a thriller than anything. Um, yeah, I would say just go watch it. It was one of the biggest surprises for me. Um, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, especially because it's a Netflix original. And yeah, it's on Netflix, so go watch it. It's just really really good. Number 6 is Suncoast. This movie's weird because this movie I can the plot of this movie is something I could relate to a lot. It's not quite the situation that I was going through as a certain time in my life, but like it's relatively similar. There's like a couple of aspects are different, right? Is this entire thing is like why I loved the Flash so much, and people get on me for that all the time. But the Flash that movie came out at a time of my life where the emotional impact of that movie was like directly the emotional moments in that movie was like directly paralleling my actual circumstances in a sense. So that kind of hit me a lot. That's why I love that movie. CGI aside, that's why I love that movie. It's the same thing with this. Growing up with a family that is weird in a sense of like one person's not doing so great, medically, and having to kind of work your life around that is never fun. And I think that's why I kind of related to this a bunch. I will say though, I think this movie would be a 10 out of 10 if Woody Harrelson wasn't in it. Don't get me wrong, I love Woody Harrelson. I think he's great in the movie, but at the same time, there was no need for him to be in the movie. But otherwise, Suncoast is great. Nico Parker does a great performance, and yeah, I can't wait to see her in more stuff because it's great. Yeah, shout out Dumbo. Number 5 is Transformers One. This is another movie where, truthfully, I wasn't expecting much from this because you see, this movie was. I remember this movie was announced to be like, especially because it's celebrity voice actors. You're like, and not professional voice actors. But this movie was way better than I expected it to be. The animation was great. Seeing it in theaters, just seeing the animation was great. The voice actor performances, even from like Scarlett Johansson, was actually really good. Like Chris Hemsworth also had a great voice actor performance. Same thing with Keegan Michael Key. Like those three, like are, except other than Keegan, like those Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson, you wouldn't really expect to see like hear amazing voice actor from, but it's they're really good. And then Brian Tyree Henry is the GOAT. He's great. He's great in this movie. He's great in most things that he does. He's great, and I think just the story and the idea behind it being like being an origin story for these two characters, like a spin on an origin story for these two characters. I think it's great. Make it a sequel. Make this a franchise. Another $1 billion Transformers, please. I need to see more because I really enjoyed what I saw of it. Number 4, Deadpool Wolverine. Now, this movie actually would probably be higher. Here's the thing about this movie, though. As a comic book fan, as a movie, it's like an 8, maybe 9 out of 10, right? As a movie, it's like an 8 or 9 out of 10. There are a decent amount of things with it that, like, as a movie, it's like, this isn't great. As a comic book fan, this is a 10 out of 10 movie. And that's why I'm balancing out at a 9. Or 4.5 out of 5. As a comic book fan, this is a 10 out of 10 movie, and there's nothing you can really say about that. I remember I went and watched this movie with friends, and I remember coming out and being like, I could die happy. Just seeing Deadpool, Wolverine, they have like legitimate chemistry. And Wolverine's arc throughout the entire thing, same thing with Deadpool, with his world, and like the cameos, which I'm not gonna say it, but like they are out in the world by this point. The movie's been out for 6 months now. As a comic book fan, I really like this movie. And it's a movie that I haven't gone back to, unfortunately, but I've been meaning to. I just haven't gotten the time. Number 3, the most recent addition to this list is Anora. Um, Honora was a movie that I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, I heard a decent amount about, but at the same time, I truthfully was not. I did not know what I was gonna get out of this movie. What I got out of this movie genuinely might have been the most chaotic. Um, how do I explain it? It was like the most chaotic, it's crazy, insane movie I have like ever watched. In like the sequence of events and some decisions that the characters make, um, was just like it was it was I don't know. Some of the sequence of events was like really wild. And it was very funny. It was a very funny movie, but at the same time, it was very heart. It was very heartbreaking at times, right? Especially towards the end with that final shot. I heard people didn't really like that final shot. I thought it was great. Like, it's very heartbreaking. It's like a character that has actively shielded her emotions and trying to, save something that she thought she um was invested that she was thought she was invested in. Actively going through lines to say just for the other person to abandon it so quickly, and just like everything just going on in her head, but not showing it in real life. At the end, just kind of breaking down on the reality under the reality of the situation. While she's actively trying, like going back to what she was doing beforehand, just kind of breaking down in the middle of that was like it was very heartbreaking and kind of sealed it of like this is one of my favorite movies of the year. And I watched it December 31st. And yeah, I hope this I want this movie to win any award, any and every award because it genuinely deserves it and it tells a great story that underneath all of the chaos and confusion and it genuinely is very funny. Um, Tells a story that is heartbreaking and emotional and it's something that if you really start thinking about it, it hits on a deeper level. It hits different is what I'm saying. Also, this is a movie that kind of had me. I'm not saying I didn't respect them beforehand, but it definitely gave me like a newfound respect for sex workers. Um, just because of what they have to go through to survive in the world, what certain women and men, but mostly women, have to go through to survive in the world. That's just I'm not gonna like it's I couldn't do it. Some of the stuff that I don't know how I would I don't know how I'm trying to word this without sounding extremely disrespectful. I don't know how they do it. Genuinely, a lot of the stuff that they go through is messed up, and I'm not sure what I would do if I had to go through that. So yeah. Number two, challengers. This is the most stressed out I've ever been in a movie. I'm going to try to keep this quick and short because you've probably heard a whole bunch about this movie at this point. This is the most stressed out I've ever been in a movie. Um, a whole bunch of twists and turns from a simple tennis movie that I did not think that was it was going to take. Of course, the trailers also all looked insane. Like the trailers made the movie look insane. The movie is genuinely more insane than the trailers make it look. It's the craziest thing. It's like 30% tennis, 70% the aftermath of a three-way gone horribly wrong. That's the best way to explain that movie. It's so good. The acting, like the score is great, but like the acting, and a lot of the dialogue is great. And then the writing and whatnot is great. I'm gonna need let me check who wrote this movie. I know who it is. I don't know their name offhand. Sorry. All right, yeah, this dude. Justin Kuritzkes, something like that. I'm gonna need him and specifically him and Celine Song to like figure out like talk to each other or something because this is the second movie in the same this is the second year in a row where uh one of them had released a movie about like three individuals going through stuff like past lives last year and this year with challengers both ended up being like top three movies of the year. Like, y'all are married. I don't if you guys are going through stuff, I please work it out on your own terms. And it's crazy because Materialist is coming out what this year or something like that, and that's the same premise. I need y'all to work that out on your own time, dog. It's the funniest thing. Granted, I'll take the movies. The movies are really good, but like, y'all gotta figure that out, please, please. I'm begging. All right, before we get to number one, I want to look at some dishonorable mentions. I know we did honorable mentions earlier, but I want to look at some dishonorable mentions. Um, and before I go for it, I want to clarify the dishonorable mentions because there's a movie on here that would get me flack. The dishonorable mentions are there are some like really really bad movies on there, but there are also movies that just kind of disappointed me. Movies that I don't think are like horrible, but movies that like heavily disappointed me. So let's get started. Let's start with the bad movies. Borderlands was horrible. I watched that a week or two ago. That movie's terrible. It's like, ain't nothing to really say about it. Madam Web was at least a little bit funny. Still terrible, but it was at least a little bit funny. Joker, Folie à Deux, I don't think was as bad as everybody said it was, but compared to the first movie, it wasn't great. I think this movie would have done so much better if A, the ending was completely different, and B, it wasn't a jukebox musical. I don't hate musicals, which what we'll get to this in a moment. I don't hate musicals, but this movie did not need to be a jukebox musical. Respectfully, it didn't. Especially because they're singing songs that you've heard before. Like it just didn't need to do that. But otherwise, I think the movie is actually okay. I don't think it's terrible. Civil War is a movie that has like so many ideas. I've talked to a couple of people about this. Civil War is a movie that is like is a commentary on like different ideas and topics that I think are really important to talk about. But the execution some of the plot decisions and choices are like really weird. So that execution is not great. Which is why I'm like kind of mixed about this movie. And Alex Garland, just kind of Alex Garland in general, I'm mixed on. Alex Garland has like the capability to write some like amazing stuff, but like some write and then direct some trash or just something that's made. Because I haven't watched Ex Machina, right? But I've watched Civil War. I've watched Annihilation. I think both of those movies are painfully mid. And I mean painfully mid. I don't mean mid in the sense like bad. I mean like 5 out of 10. Right? Just because of like one reason or another, they're not what I prefer. But at the same time, something like Sunshine, which I'm pretty sure he wrote, he wrote that movie. Of course, with the director and whatnot, but the movie that he wrote, that is a top 5 movie for me. It's the top 5 movie of all time. I adore that movie. I have a script somewhere in my room. I love that movie so much. But when he's actually writing and directing stuff, not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea. Lastly, Wicked and by association Mean Girls for reasons. Let me clarify for a second. I love musicals. I do. I adore musicals. I think musicals are great. I haven't seen every musical in the world, but I think musicals are great. Which is why I wouldn't say I was like the most excited for Wicked because it's Wizard of Oz, a story that most people know. I'm not the hugest Wizard of Oz fan. Like the movies are good. I like The Wiz. The Wiz was great, but the movies are good. I've never seen Wicked on Broadway. I've never seen Wicked. I've never heard any of the Wicked soundtrack before this. I never read anything on Wicked. I've seen things. I've heard things about it as a Broadway musical that's been on for so long. Is it on Broadway? I'm not actually sure. It's like a musical that's been on for so long. I've seen things about it, but like didn't really have much expectations going in. And people had kind of hyped this movie up. Like it was great. This movie is like a tale of two halves, where it's like I think half of this movie is really good, half of this movie is not. I think and I've talked to people about this, a couple of people. I think the first half of this movie is very slow, and I think this movie would have been so much better if it wasn't 3 hours long. Like they could have actually, and B, if they cut out maybe like 45 minutes of the movie, I think the movie would have been much better. It's like the same complaint that people have about the Batman. And I guess it's kind of like different tastes, different strokes, and I get that. But I feel like the Batman is like a more of a case of like, yeah, maybe you could maybe cut like 10 to 15 minutes out, maybe even 20 minutes out of this movie, and it'll be much better. Wicked is like an entire 45 minutes could be cut from this movie, and I don't think anybody would notice. Like it's very weird, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that some of the songs don't really do it for me, right? And I get this like an adaptation from a musical, but some of the songs don't really do it for me. It's the same thing with Mean Girls, right? Which is why it's here. I To be fair, I also didn't really have any expectations with this one. Um, but the thing, Wick is here as under disappointments because it was hyped up so much. Mean Girls was just simply a case of like, you know, I thought the story of the original was fine. So I'm watching this movie for the first time. I'm like, I wish the songs were better, right? I think that's my thing. I wish the songs in the first half of Wicked were better. Wish the songs of Mean Girls were better. The second half of Wicked is still great. I think the second half of Wicked is great, but that first half of Wicked brings it down so much that even as a fan of musicals, I was like, I'm still not. I'm not the biggest fan. So yeah, that's why Wicked's here. Number one, Dune Part Two. There's not really much to be said about this movie. This movie is amazing. And now having read the book, and I need to move on to Doom Messiah soon. Now having read the book, I think this movie is just so much. It's so much better than when I first watched it. You know, there's not really much to be said about this movie because this movie almost made $1 billion, or at least maybe 700 million, something like that. It's really good. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go watch part one first, then go watch part two. Masterful movies. Part two made part one so much better, and just the payoff and everything. I can't wait to see what happens in Dune Messiah. So yeah, that is my top 10 movies of the year. Hoping 2025 is a really good year for movies. I'm very excited. We get Superman this year. I'm very hyped. But yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you when I see you because I don't really record on the same channel anymore because of college. See you when I see you. Bye.